And as a nation, we are in mourning. As a nation, we are seeking answers. As a nation, many of us feel helpless. As a nation, many of us are in fear. As a nation, many of us are in anger. As a nation, we are experiencing a wealth of emotions. Yes, yes? And so this morning, I want to offer some hope. I want to offer some hope to each and every one of you and each and every person that will watch this message. But as you hear me saying that, I'm sure there's somebody in the space that's saying, hope? Really? You must not realize how many unarmed black men have been killed. You didn't hear the statistic, Pastor Greg? They're saying now that more unarmed black men have been killed than were lynched. Hope? What you talking about? Is there any hope? How can you have hope? How can you find hope? Did you hear about what happened in Baghdad? 200 people were killed all at once in Baghdad. Did you hear that they bombed the holy site in Medina where the prophet is buried? Did you hear about that, Pastor Greg? And you want to talk about hope? Maybe you didn't hear about the news in Baton Rouge. Maybe you didn't hear about the news in Minnesota. Maybe you didn't hear about the news in Dallas, Pastor Greg, and you want to talk about some hope right now? Yes. I'm here to offer some hope. And the reason why I'm here to offer some hope is because you brought it with you. It's already inside of you. And so we're just going to call it forth for a few minutes. And so as I was thinking about that, I thought it was important that we take a little journey, and we're going to go back a ways in the history of this country. We're going to go back 163 years. We're going to go to the year 1853. Now, America in 1853 was very different than the United States that we know today. One thing that's interesting is our flag only had 31 stars. Only 31 states in the Union. Back in 1853, there were 16 free states of those 31. In 1853, Levi's was founded, an American institution. And as a musician, I love the fact that Steinway & Sons was also founded, the great piano maker, 163 years ago. Something interesting happened in 1853, a terrible incident actually. 7,700 people died of an outbreak of yellow fever back in 1853. Can you imagine that? 3,000 people died on 9/11. 7,700 people in this country died from an outbreak of yellow fever back in 1853. Something else that happened in 1853, it's called the Nantucket Massacre. 450 Tolowa people, indigenous people, were killed. It was a massacre. They were killed by a citizen militia while they were in prayer. That happened in 1853. This was also the time of the gold rush. The gold rush was just about ending. California was already a state in the Union. In 1853, it's interesting to understand that this is 10 years before the Emancipation Proclamation. That was in 1863. 8 years before the Civil War. And then another interesting thing, in 1853, a book, 12 Years a Slave, was published by Solomon Northup. That was a pretty bad time, wouldn't you say? Slavery, massacre of indigenous people, 450 people killed by a citizen militia. Y'all hear that? 7,700 people dying from disease. Just gone. But like here and now, genes were created. Things that we know and love, right? The greatest piano maker had an idea and brought forth this new business. That was also happening at that time. But in the midst of 1853, with all of the despair, with all of, I can't imagine how much hope I would have had at that time, but in the midst of that, there was a man that wrote these words. He wrote, "Look at the facts of the world. You see a continual and progressive triumph of the right. I do not pretend to understand the moral universe, but the arc is a long one. My eyes reach but little ways. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by the experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience. But from what I see, I am sure it bends toward justice. Now, you may have heard these words before, but you probably heard them from the 60s. Dr. Martin Luther King. The arc of the moral universe is long and it bends towards justice. He was quoting this brother, Theodore Parker, who was a Unitarian minister. He was an abolitionist, and at this time he was writing, saying that slavery has to end. He was also part of the Transcendental movement. He was a Transcendentalist, so that means he was a brother of Thoreau. He was a brother of Emerson. That means that he was part of the roots of this philosophy that we call New Thought. He understood something, that even in the midst of 450 indigenous people being killed by a citizen militia, even in the midst of some free states but still slave states, even in the midst of a time where we have a story being written by a brother named Solomon Northrop that you can be a free man but then taken back into slavery, he said, I don't understand it all, but I know something about life. The arc of the moral universe is long and it bends towards justice.